I received an email question about this Alice and Bill problem, which is actually an example of a chicken game. A chicken game is the opposite of a matching game, where the matching game was that Phil Lisa cinema game we did in class, where both parties want to do the same thing. Well, a chicken game is where both parties want to do a different game, different strategy. Anyway, let's think about this. Alice and Bill are operating small restaurants in a small town, and we could see from the payoffs that they do better if one specializes in breakfast and the other in dinner. And so let's think about the dynamics of this game. Part A reads, suppose Alice and Bill make their decisions separately and simultaneously so that each must decide what to do knowing the available choices, but not what the other has actually chosen. How many potential equilibria are there? They give us a hint to see whether a given combination of strategies is an equilibrium. Ask whether either, oh boy, they give us a big hint. But, well, let's just take them up on their hint and get started here. Let's suppose we were at this situation where they both were serving dinners. Given that Alice is choosing to serve dinners, would Bill want to change and just focus on breakfast, being a breakfast restaurant? We see that he earns $1,000 as a dinner restaurant, but if he switched, given what Alice is doing, he'd earn $1,400. So we found that one of them wants to switch. In fact, both of them want to switch, but we found that one player wants to switch, so that's not a Nash equilibrium. I'm just going to take the other opposite case where they're both deciding to be a breakfast place, and let's think about Alice's problem. So Alice is thinking now that Bill is choosing to be a breakfast restaurant. Given that Bill has chosen to be a breakfast restaurant, Alice can make $800 as a breakfast restaurant. If she switched, given what Bill is doing, could she do better? Yes, $1,600 is better than $800, so she would want to switch. So this, all we need is one. In fact, both would want to switch given what the other one's doing. I'll let you verify that, but all we need is one to find one that wants to switch, and it's not a Nash equilibrium. Well, let's check the other ones. If Alice is specializing in being a breakfast restaurant and Bill is specializing in being a dinner restaurant, would anyone want to switch? Well, given that Bill is being a dinner restaurant, if Alice switched, she'd go from making $1,400 to $1,000, and that would be worse off. She's not going to do that. Let's think about Bill. Given that Alice is a breakfast restaurant, he's making $1,600 as a dinner restaurant. Would he be interested in switching to become a breakfast restaurant and make $800 instead? No. So nobody wants to switch. So this one is a Nash equilibrium. And then let's just check the other one for completeness. I mean, my intuition, and I'm sure yours too, is telling you that that's a Nash equilibrium, but let's just check. All right. Given, let's think about Bill's situation. We're here. If given that Alice is a dinner restaurant, would Bill want to change to become a breakfast? No, we're checking this one. Alice is a dinner restaurant. Given that Bill is a breakfast restaurant, would he want to change to be a dinner restaurant? No, he'd go from $1,400 to $1,000. So he doesn't want to switch there. And then let's check from Alice's point of view. Given that Bill is a breakfast restaurant, Alice is right now a dinner restaurant. That's what being in this quadrant means. Would Alice be interested in switching? No, switching, she'd go from $1,600 to $800. So there are two potential equilibrium, and I would never just ask you how many equilibria there are. I'd ask you to tell me what the equilibrium are. There are two, and they are where Alice specializes in being a breakfast restaurant, Bill in being a dinner restaurant, and the opposite case where Alice specializes in being a dinner restaurant, Bill specializes in being a breakfast restaurant. All right, well, the game goes on, and suppose Now Alice gets to choose first, and Bill can see what kind of restaurant Alice opens before he makes his choice. What will be the equilibrium outcome? And I would never just ask you that question. I would ask you to write the game tree. So let's think about that. Now suppose Alice, Alice will open a dinner, Bill will open, there it is, right out of the gate. That's the only one that fits. All right. Game tree. And let's review the conventions of writing a game while we do that. Well, first off, we start here at the left with the first mover, node A, appropriately enough, that's Alice. We title the node with the name of the player. And Alice has two choices. She could open a breakfast restaurant, or she could open a dinner restaurant. And then Bill gets to decide. So B for Bill. Now the pattern gets destroyed because C is also Bill's node to move. If we're at node C, Bill gets the choice. And Bill also can open either a breakfast restaurant. So we label each branch with the choice that the player makes, or he could open a dinner restaurant. And he has the same choice if Alice has opened a dinner restaurant. And then let's label the payoff nodes so we know what, as we discuss this game, we can just say, well, suppose we're at E, and it just gives us a really efficient way to discuss this game. And then the payoffs are going to be Alice's payoff and Bill's payoff. And we'll just use the given payoffs. That's what we should do. So Alice and Bill both open a breakfast restaurant. That's 800. 800. We don't have to say for Alice for Bill because we know since Alice moved first and Bill moved second that Alice's payoff will be first and then Bill's all the way down the line. Sort of a nice little convention. Now if Alice opens a breakfast restaurant and Bill opens a dinner restaurant, Alice gets 1,400 and Bill gets 1,600. On the other hand, if Alice is the one running the dinner restaurant and Bill opens the breakfast restaurant, it's those same payoff, but in reverse. Alice, the dinner restaurant, makes a little more. People buy drinks at dinner, not at breakfast typically. God help the person that's drinking at breakfast. And then finally, if they both open a dinner restaurant, they both earn 1,000. So with a sequential game like this, we've got to prune the game tree to solve. And pruning the game tree involves thinking out here at the final nodes, just determining what players would do based on their payoffs, and then pruning any branches that won't happen. And then we just go back a level and we can figure out what the player that moves before should anticipate, and so on, and we can solve the game. So let's solve this game. Let's do it using green to prune branches. Let's suppose that that Bill finds himself at B. He could choose a breakfast restaurant and make 800, or a dinner restaurant and make 1,600. Well, 1,600 is better than 1,800 any day of the week, and Bill's not going to open a breakfast restaurant, so we can just prune that branch. If Bill finds himself at node C, that means Alice has opened a dinner restaurant. Bill could open a breakfast restaurant and make 1,400, or open a dinner restaurant and make 1,000. Well, 1,400 is better than 1,000, so we can prune off the dinner restaurant branch. Well, now we're done with thinking through all the end branches, the furthest out branches, and then we just move back a level. And here there's only 2 levels, but we would use the same technique if we had a 10-level game. These games can get pretty hairy, but you can prune the game trees and find out the viable outcomes for the game, the viable this. We actually call it the subgame perfect Nash equilibria to be dictionary breath about it. All right, let's think now. If Alice opens a breakfast restaurant, she knows that Bill will open a dinner restaurant, and Alice would get $1,400 for doing that. On the other hand, she knows, if she thinks through the game, she knows that if she opens a dinner restaurant, Bill's going to respond by opening a breakfast restaurant, and then Alice would get $1,600. Well, $1,600 is better than $1,400. We can prune this breakfast game tree, and then we're back to the beginning, so we can just identify the one path that this game has to take if we have forward-thinking, astute, rationally self-interested people. And there we have it. So back to our earlier question. Let's flip back to the previous page.